Well, a very warm welcome to all of you. This is 6 minutes a day, a journey to your higher self. My name is Justin. I am so glad that you are here at Strength, Yoga, and Freedom. If you found us on the YouTube channel or the podcast, you're in the right place if you're looking for somewhere to maybe re-examine areas of your life and build some positive change around those to bring yourself to a higher version of yourself. We are in the final week of this program. So the first half of the program, about days 1 through 15, talked all about self-discovery. And then the rest of the program has been geared towards how to take that self-discovery and move it out into the world so that when you're dealing with others, you can do so at that high vibration level. Now, yesterday's training was all about how things start with you. So as we move into today's training, I do want to remind you all that, as I mentioned, this program is ending on day number 30, which will be this coming Friday. And then starting next week, once a week, there will be free yoga that you can take on the YouTube channel. I'll be teaching free yoga. It's all levels. If you've never done yoga before, don't worry about it. You're gonna be just fine. That starts next week. And then on the podcast, we will be doing about 2 episodes per week where I'll be teaching, and then we're also gonna have some guests on as well. So we wanna bring you more content. And I appreciate all of your support in both of those platforms by subscribing, following, sharing, whatever you prefer, whatever way you prefer to get the information out there. It is so appreciated from all of us. Now, if you want to be the first person to know what content is coming out on the podcast or what free yoga classes are coming out on the YouTube channel, please be sure to join our email list from the link in the description. So, building patterns for success. That's today's topic. Now, in days 6 through 10 of this program, we talked all about habits and routines, and I want to bring that back in to this week as we're building upon yesterday's training where we talk about how it starts with you. Now, first thing to talk about is habits and a review of how habits are created. Habits are created in your brain by you repeating a task and a procedure over and over and over again. So if you're doing something, you're repeating a procedure, it turns into a habit, much like getting dressed, driving a car, taking a drink, putting food into your mouth. All of those things were formed by you repeating a behavior or a pattern, and it turned into a habit. So you don't have to think much about doing those things. Where we tend, though, to get stuck is we stop those things that we do on repeat, and we make excuses, and we say, well, I'm not going to exercise, or I can just skip that healthy meal, or I can just not do any of that today, and then it happens again, and then it happens again, and suddenly you're not training your brain anymore to get into a habit of something that is benefiting you so that you can move forward into that higher version of yourself. The more you make excuses and the more you skip certain routines that you're starting to put in place, the more work it's going to take for your brain to absorb them into a healthy habit. And if you have unhealthy habits, it stunts the growth. Healthy habits, a little bit at a time, promote growth. So let's talk about some action steps to building the patterns for success. You really need to figure out your why once again, because it does start with you. So why do you want to change something in your life? Why do you want to make something more aligned? Why do you want to be more aligned with a certain value or a certain place or thing why do you want to be aligned with any of that? You have to figure that out first. That you can review too in the early trainings, days 1 through 5, talking about yourself, figuring out where you are. Here's some questions to ask yourself and some examples. You may be asking yourself, do you want to be a healthier person? Do you want to change your eating? Do you want to change or start an exercise routine? Do you want to start speaking up in meetings at work? Do you want to start taking control of your finances? Do you want to start building better relationships? What about stop drinking alcohol, if drinking alcohol is a problem for you, or smoking cigarettes, or using another substance that is not serving you anymore and you want to make a change? Well, in order to do any of those things, in order to change any of that, we have to apply what we've learned about habits and routines and how those habits and those routines will allow you to take action rather than consistently talking about making a change or making excuses about the changes that you're trying to make. I don't have time to do that today. This is more important than that. And so the prioritization of those healthy habits you are trying to build is critical. So let's go into what you could do for each of those topics I just mentioned. So let's start with healthy. Maybe you want to be a healthier person. What's an example of what you can do? Well, why don't you add 5 minutes of exercise into your morning routine? We talked all about morning routine. You can add it into your evening routine too. 5 minutes. What if you did planks for 5 minutes? What if you did push-ups? It doesn't matter what you're doing. What if you went for a walk for 5 minutes? It's creating a habit. Another thing you can do is force yourself to start to clean out your refrigerator and your cupboards. If you find that there are things in your refrigerator or your cupboard that you no longer want to put into your body, take little steps at a time to take those out of your refrigerator or your cupboard. What about speaking up at meetings at work? Well, you may say one thing this week while you're at work, just one thing in a meeting this week at work that you feel will make a difference in the organization that you're working at, just one thing. Because if you start jumping into doing every time there's a meeting and you start saying something and saying something and saying something and saying something just because you're trying to say something, you may not be bringing value to what you're trying to say or move forward in that organization. So start with just one thing, because once you start with that one mindful thing, it will snowball into a couple more mindful things and a couple more mindful things instead of just spewing things out just because you're trying to make a change, right? What about finances? How about creating a budget for yourself? If you've never lived on, I know I've had trouble with this in the past. If you've never lived on a budget before, if you just take a few moments to create, okay, I'm only going to spend this much money over here, and then this is going to be allotted over here, you'll be able to see quickly how you're spending your money and where it's going. What about relationships? Well, you can start to set boundaries again. You can start managing your emotions so that when you're going to interact with other people, you're not taking all of your trauma and putting it all on them. When people get angry or overwhelmed or anxious or afraid, or they start to worry, and they have no control over those emotions, those get projected out on other people. So maybe you just take a moment and recognize to yourself, oh my, this is a trigger. And this trigger, because I get triggered this way, I start to react this way. Maybe make a small tweak just like that. What about your drinking or another substance, cigarettes, whatever it could be? You don't have to go cold turkey. What if you said, I'm just gonna only have 1 drink per day, or I'm gonna cut down to 5 drinks a week. I'm gonna cut my cigarettes in half. The point that I'm trying to make with all of this is that these are building blocks for your success. They aren't just, okay, today I'm going to just make this huge drastic change and everything's gonna be okay starting tomorrow and we're good to go. Well, most of the time, it doesn't work like that. What ends up happening when you try to make a huge shift like that is overwhelm happens. And you have a greater chance to fall out of the change you're trying to make because it's so overwhelming. The key, my friends, to building blocks for successes is small, mindful changes. Tiny, tiny changes. That's where creating mindful routines that turn into healthy habits is the key. So use exercise as the example yet again. What if you just did 5 minutes of exercise? 5 minutes of exercise, believe it or not, is going to turn into more than 5 minutes if you keep going, if you just stick with it. The more you think, the more you hesitate, the more you resist, the easier it will be for you to give up. Take the little building blocks and move them forward in each and every area of your life, because then you will start to see a big difference. So as we continue on to the end, please continue to review any material that you may need to back up and re-watch or re-listen to so that you can go back and you can determine where in your life you need to make some small changes and where you can make those building blocks start to build higher and higher until you've created a brand new habit that's healthy for you and that makes sense for you. And so until tomorrow's training, smile today and enjoy the smile because you deserve it. See you all next time.